Hey everyone, and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We will be working on a larger project this time around than the last couple build episodes. This was kind of the most common thing that I could think of you guys could associate with, especially with the new release of the special edition kind of version of Skyrim. I decided to go back and build Dragonsreach. So Dragonsreach, of course, being the main kind of building in Whiterun. This is where the Jarl lives, and one of the first places you go in the storyline. And this is a little bit of a complicated structure. If you think about it, there's a lot of little layers in here. Now, I'm not doing the interior, so there's elements that I can luckily kind of get rid of and ignore because of spatial concerns and also part concerns. This is a heavy part count. In fact, in the beta, even with the beta releasing and coming out with additional kind of part limits, we still need to split this into two parts in terms of blueprints. So the first part being the wooden section, and then the second part being kind of the more stone back-end section, kind of the more keep-like section of the castle Jarl place. And, you know, there's a lot of little wooden elements on here. There is some custom window pieces on here as well, so that's mainly the main reason the part count is so high. And doing custom little air vents like this here, pretty cool to do. I do like elements like that where these wooden structures can have almost like a multi-layer. They're generally kind of offset little wooden pieces, and they let some light in, but they also block a lot of the weather, and they can use as a bit of a ventilation thing. You can block rain and stuff from coming in still and allow airflow to take place. Now, the front door on Dragonsreach is a little bit special. I'm not saying this door is an exactly good copy of it. In fact, I'm a little disappointed that I couldn't do a better job, but I think just the scale of it and the grandness of this door portrays really nicely from the game, though it shouldn't have that center column down the middle. That's just something I had to accept and use so that we could get some fancy adornments on this door, like the metalwork that these high arch doors have. And that allows you to kind of see that these are very heavy doors, as they would be in the game. And above the door, we have a special kind of circular window, and it has a wooden mesh kind of covering on this thing, and it looks really cool. To do this is really simple, just a simple 45-degree angle, and you just space these out. And the background of these, because the lighting and possibly maybe the age of the wood is a little bit more yellow, and so that kind of pops it out and makes them stand out from everything else. There's also little, almost like a 30-degree angled wooden pieces here and there, so that from above you can see just the wood, and then from below you can kind of see up into those nooks and crevices. This is kind of something that took a couple attempts to get right. This is the dragon adornments above some of the roof lines and elements like that. And I tried using initially just the default dragon that comes with the game because, you know, sculpting this was going to take some extra pieces, and keeping block counts low was always on my mind when doing this. So initially you're going to have to start working on S shapes and using small pieces to the best you can. And the upper kind of roof alignment here, just using the wooden piece and the almost like the connection sections there to create the spikes that are along the roof trim. So that turned out really well. The dragon, I think we'll come back to a bit later and move it around a little bit. It wasn't quite right at this stage. So, you know, it's all about trying to get that kind of verticality. I think that's a little too flat and just not sticking quite right. Luckily, the two wings of the wooden section, very much the same as the front, except for there is some extra little pieces going on here. We have still the same kind of ringed window up top, but then on the middle section, we're going to have like a large half circle, and the best thing I could think of was this ring here to use, and then you just partially sink it at about a 5-degree angle, hiding the lower half inside the building, and the upper half kind of pokes up through, giving you that ring support that you're going to see in Skyrim. Now, a lot of the scaling is a little off in this game compared to Skyrim. You know, when you're doing kind of copies of already made structures and you're doing copies of, say, things from shows and TV, what you're going to run into is the limitations of the medium. So the medium, of course, being just Planet Coaster in general, and we're kind of limited just by how big these parts are and also how big the grids are in this game. So, you know, the wings right now are currently a little wide, and we'll end up moving those in at some point. And it's still a little wider than it probably should be, but there's not much I can do. I need probably a quarter grid rather than a half grid to get everything as close as possible. Even this main tower here is going to be a little bit shorter than in the game, but I'm okay with it. It will probably function just as well, and you also measure off of elements around it anyway, so things will be roughly in the correct scale. We're going to be doing the same kind of ring trick up here. This one's a larger kind of element than on the sides, and this one also provides a lot more of this wooden paneling that we're going to be doing there as well. Now, this is very similar to, say, what we did on the sides of the initial building, how we had those kind of offsetting wooden pieces allowing some ventilation to take place, but these ones are a little bit bigger, bulkier, and quicker to do out of the solid kind of wood trim that has that indent, and you can get pretty much the same effect from doing that. At this point, we'll just copy the full ringed window from below, and we'll eventually save that as just a piece to use because we'll have to use it occasionally throughout the building. Some more wooden supports. You guys have seen all this stuff done in the Renaissance Fair. You guys know roughly how these work by now, and you know I'm probably still not using it quite 100% accurately, but either way, any little detail that you can squeeze in definitely stands out, using the sides of the boards to create little shadow lines from afar and creating little depth of field-like elements along the sides. I really wish some more of the roofing pieces had more overhanged variants to work with. Here is the reworked dragon head. You can see it's almost like a swan head. Currently, there's not much I can do to make it much better, I don't think. But, you know, we gave it a little bit of a beak-like element there instead of a full snout. Don't really have quite the piece, I think, required to give it anything more beyond that. And at that point, we'll just copy it around and replace all the other ones and try and get all the roof trim up and about. Now, we are ahead a little ways. You know, I did work on this a little sporadically and then also while I was doing other things. So recording during those times are pretty hard to do. You don't really get a smooth kind of speed build effect by taking, 15-minute breaks and just leaving the game running. And the stone section is very boxy, and I was a little surprised at that Bethesda would make such a simple shape for the rest of the building. Now, I think there is probably maybe a 1 to 2 degree angled slope on these walls, but for me to do that would have used a lot of custom pieces, and I didn't think increasing the block count so much just to get this 1 to 2 degree sloping effect on the sides was worth it over just using the base tile set. If this wasn't going to be a blueprint, I might have done it, but even then, extending everything's basically time and reward when you're doing these things. So you don't want to spend too much time getting an effect because you might get burned out on the building in general by the time you get the effect finished, and it can be challenging to power on through when you're building these type of things. Now, we're kind of finishing up the upper section, and this upper section just has some simple, almost like row home like effects here. The center one being slightly taller than the others and slightly wider to basically symbol that this is the main one. These two outer buildings could possibly be for like the sons, daughters of the Jarl, possibly also for servants and guest rooms. And at this point, pretty much the general shape of the keep is done. It's just detailing, and so detailing is relatively quick if you have a basic pattern to follow, especially if you have good images of what you're looking at. I did not have the best images of Whiterun. I probably could have hopped into Skyrim, reinstalled it, and taken some better ones, just flying around using cheats, but decided to take the lazy route and just go to Google search, because reinstalling that just to make the castle I don't think was going to be worth it. And overall, I'm really happy with how this one turned out. It was a fairly successful build in my mind to accomplish. The main building's also going to have double high windows, and I don't know why I've never done that before. I've never stacked those two windows to make a taller variant of it. I've done wider ones, I've done more square variants of them, but I've never done really tall slender variations, and that was pretty interesting to do, because you need a lot of verticalities to make this thing look taller and taller from such a low ground level. Now there is going to be a little bit of a skip near the end, trying to finish off the balcony. The backside of this is actually very simple. I did have a screenshot of the backside of Dragonsreach, and in the game it is plain. I just have the doors closed for where the kind of dragon capturing mechanism is, so we'll be basically cutting that out of the speed build anyways. Here is an upper door to get onto this kind of walk around guard tower here, and I actually never noticed that in Dragonsreach playing the game, because you don't really take into account all the little details the editors add in there in little stories. And so I thought it was pretty interesting that this castle had such a little feature up here. Potentially maybe the Jarl can use this as a balcony as well. So we're pretty much done with the speed build section for today. Let's go ahead and take a look at everything real time, and I'll point you guys to the Steam Workshop item. Okay, so here we are at Dragonsreach. Now, I did want to possibly make the bridge as a separate piece later on, if you guys are interested in that. I think that would be a nice little addition. But due to the blueprint already being split into two items, I didn't want to include that for fear of part counts and all that things. And then also the bridge, if it was separate, possibly people can use that just as a general bridge for their park. It's a very nice looking bridge, and probably one of my favorite things in Whiterun, to be honest. It's just a unique structure, how the wooden frame and everything works. But I guess that's not what we're gonna be talking about in this little segment here. But let's go ahead and talk about just Whiterun in general. So here is the front gate here of Dragonsreach, with the nice adornment above. Now, I don't know why they have such large wooden paneling up here. That's, as I said, potentially could be for ventilation, could be for other things. It could just be for looks. I don't know. I'm not the one that designed Dragonsreach, but it's pretty interesting how the plaster and base elements get covered up over time with just details and little hidden little objects here, even small windows up here in the upper section. I think this might be the walkway here. This is technically like the throne room kind of great hall section, and so there is an upper balcony that runs across the upper floor, and I think that actually might correspond to where those are. The initial right wing, of course, being where the sorcerer is that is studying dragons, giving you your first quest, though you most likely completed it before you even get here. It is at the very first dungeon that you come from at Riverwood, and it has just a really nice presence. I like the shots that you can see at the angles. It has a nice progression of height going up, plenty of little adornments as you get higher and higher. And then also they're not overused, so they're not on every single window peak or anything like that. They're just on the main wings and then the main kind of spire. And then other than that, everything's kind of plain and simple. We got some additional side elements here. Now, I believe there is a jail cell on this area. Not something that I felt like capturing, so we just decided to leave it plain and empty. If you guys are doing your own Skyrim park, I would love to see it. And hopefully this will be useful for you guys if you're doing that. I could even make a Skyrim park, possibly, if people want to as well. here is kind of the main tower. Now this should be taller probably. I'm pretty sure it should be about up to here where my cursor is now, based on screenshots. So this is a lot more narrow, but it was mainly due to kind of limitations with the blocks and things. I didn't want to make too many custom roof tiles. I didn't want to make custom wall tiles or anything. So that's kind of what we're stuck with currently. We got some stone winged elements with just some plain windows. Now these are sunken in and more defensive in screenshots. We don't really have those type of windows to use in this case, so I went ahead and just used these more ornate, taller ones because I think they look really nice. That's basically how that turned out. The sides on the upper floor, very plain, straightforward, just timber framed kind of structures. And then the back here, this is actually what the back looks like. Now, I'm pretty sure it looks differently, say, at the dragon capture scene, because you'll be accessed into the town itself, and this is a different separate loading zone than everywhere else in the game, because, you know, Bethesda games aren't open worlds, more so as instanced worlds. And so, for fear of trying to capture all the detail on the inside here where the dragon is, I decided to just close up the door. I added these extra side doors potentially because there's no sense in terms of defensively to have this and then open up these giant doors if you're not fighting a dragon. If you're fighting humans, you just want normal access points. So that's why I added those on the sides. I don't know if they're actually in the game or not, but otherwise it's just a flat wall, nothing too plain. And of course, you know, from down here, this is generally how you would see Whiterun off in the distance. The mountainside, of course, covering up a lot of this structure in general. So, you know, some of the presence is lost when you're doing these type of constructions. On the inside, I can show you how much space we have. We have a decent amount, actually. You could potentially use this as a coaster station and actually have it launch out the doorway here. That would be pretty cool if people wanted to use it for that purpose. You could also use it for shops and food and services. The base of this structure is very open, and you can use it for a lot of things in your own parks. But yeah, so that's Dragonsreach. Let's go ahead and take the look at the two pieces. So this is what you're going to be looking at the Steam Workshop. You're going to have the front section and then the back section. To line these up is pretty simple. I would recommend laying the back section first. And then when you bring these over, you want to line it up based on these upper stair sections. So what you're looking for is first lining up those. And then lining up these wall sections. Just like that. And you guys could take a lot more time if you want it to be perfect. You then sink this down quite simply like so. And so that's basically lined up now and ready to be used in your own parks, etc. So you guys can find that in the description link down below to download this park kind of element and hopefully use it for your own builds. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more creative goodness. Go ahead and hit that like button so you guys can let me know to play more Planet Coaster in the future. Go ahead and check out my other videos for more of this wonderful building technique to get to see how all this stuff behind us is done and constructed. And I will see you guys in the next episode.